Russell Spatz. I'm an alcoholic. What are you doing? I'm 75 years old, for God's sakes. I can barely tie my shoes. You get all these distractions. I can't. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a member of the South Dixie virtual group. We meet on Zoom every day, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m., right? We have I have a workshop on Saturday. You guys love the workshop. You go to the workshop, right?
Love it.
It's only 4 hours. You guys can handle it. First hour is just music. And we have an Alive Again meeting on Friday nights. And there is a great meeting on every morning at 7 a.m. called the Serenity Now Group. We get people from all over, workshop, we get about 80 people, 90 people from all over the world. So you're all invited to go there if you want, if you got nothing better to do. If you're an alcoholic, you probably don't. So I haven't found it necessary to have a drink since January 25th, 1981. So I'm in my 44th year of sobriety. And so I've seen a lot, like that farmer's commercial that I like. He says, we know a lot because we've seen a lot. I'm not as smart as I used to be. I mean, there was a time where I actually had some, let me do it this way. By the time I got here, I had two neurons working and they were waving goodbye to each other. So, I used to be very sharp, but when I was really sharp, I was also the drunkest guy in the room. But, what Alcoholics Anonymous has done, I used to be hip and cool. I know that's hard to believe, but I have photos. I have pictures on my phone of 40 years ago when I was cool. And if you hang around AA for 44 years, it'll de-hip you. I promise you, it'll be dip, My daughter, I've raised, I've married for 43 years, a lot of years. And I've raised 4 kids, and my youngest is like, 40 years old, out of 45, I don't even know. I got 8 grandkids and self-supporting through my own contributions and all that stuff. So I've learned a lot, you may find this hard to believe. I came in at 31. I used to know everything, but that's all I knew. I didn't know how to hold a marriage together. I didn't know how to be a decent human being. I didn't know how to not stop thinking about myself and what other people thought about me. I didn't know how to stop worrying. I didn't know how to stop hating people. There was a lot of things I didn't know, And I'm an alcoholic because no woman, no car, no amount of money, no job, no nothing ever worked quite as well as just a few drinks. That's all, just a few drinks, or as fast as just a few drinks. And so if alcohol did for you what it did for me when I was 18 years old, let me tell you something, you're going to drink it. And I drank it. I drank it for the noble art of getting bombed, and I didn't drink it to have a sip or two, but unfortunately for me, there came a point in time where alcohol stopped working for me. And the sad news about my life is it stopped working for me about 10 years before I realized it stopped working for me, and I beat the shit out of a lot of people emotionally. I had a quick wit and a crappy mouth and sarcastic attitude. And I ripped my first wife's heart out by cheating on her, basically, because I didn't give a shit. I really didn't give a shit. I didn't care. All I thought about was myself. And and that's the deal. And so I came in when I was 31. I probably should have come in when I was like 19, I probably should have come in after I had my first. I've been an alcoholic ever since, quite frankly, looking at myself now and understanding what alcoholism really is, because it really doesn't have much to do with the drinking. Don't get me wrong, you got to stop the drinking. But it really has to do with emotions and feelings and stuff like that. I was probably born an alcoholic. I was a drink waiting to happen. Listen, let me tell you something. Alcohol saved my life, because if it wasn't for booze, I would probably blow my brains out by the time I was 20 years old. Because, man, I'll tell you, I started feeling better the moment I started driving up to the bar. Just parking at the bar, I started feeling better, You know, the way I drank, they used to say, well, we didn't think you were an alcoholic. You didn't drink that much, but you drank fast. I drank to get to that place. I mean, I would pull up to the bar and I'd order 2 drinks. And they were both doubles, you know, because I didn't want, you know, I hated that thing when you drank something down because I just whacked it down, scotch or something. And then you have to get the attention. I always got to the bar at 4:30. You want to get before the rush, you know, and then you whack it down. And then you got to get the attention of the guys. So I didn't want to go through that crap, you know. I wanted to have them all up there, and it was my bar, my seat. That's where I sat, and I remember one time when I was 5 years after I got married for 5 years, I saw some gal. My life as an alcoholic is I wake up every morning and say, if only I had this, I'd be okay. If I only had more money, I'd be okay. If I only had a different job, I'd be okay. If I only had a different wife, I'd be okay. You know, I mean, I didn't realize I was constantly telling myself I'm not okay. But I just knew if I could get something or how I spent more money that I didn't have buying crap I didn't need to impress other people I didn't like and worried about what people thought about me, you know, worried about that crap, you know. I had to run around. All I did was run around looking for women because in my mind, you know, if you're a man, you just get laid or you get a gal. I mean, that's what it was all for. It was all vanity stuff, all bullshit. That's what I was. I was a bullshit guy. You know, I graduated with departmental honors in mathematics. I was a National Science Foundation fellow. All the bullshit. Went to law school, became a division chief in the state attorney's office, trying major crimes, and I knew nothing. I was a nothing. That was my problem. I was a nothing. I was always going to be a nothing. I used to put something in my body. It turned me into an almost. When you're nothing, almost is top of the world. You know, it's just something happened to me. It's not what alcohol does to you and what it does for you. Man, I'll tell you, when I just whack down some alcohol, I didn't worry about belonging to the group. I thought I owned the group. You know, I'd see some gal and I'd be scared to sort of go up to her and talk to her and anything. I had a couple of drinks, man. Who gave a crap? And one day I saw this gal in a class in school, and I said, man, if I only had that gal, you know, I'd be okay. And so I poured on the charm, you know, to insinuate myself into her life. So I knew if I could have her, I'd be okay. And I ended up insinuating myself in that gal's life and married her. And she was a great gal, nice family, the whole bit. And I just, and she was great and it worked. The wedding was great. Yeah, wedding, a lot of drinking, a lot of stuff. But, you know, 6 down, you ever buy a new car? You know, I remember I bought a brand new Camaro. Brand new. Gorgeous when they first came out, 1971, I think, when they was sleek, you know, Camaros and the Firebird. I said, if I could only have that car, I'd be okay. I'd inherited some money, you know, about $6,000, and you could buy like a car, you know, and I couldn't, it was still more money, but I could finance it. And I went down and I bought this car, this Camaro. And he says, well, you come back tomorrow and you can pick up the car. And I said, well, no, I'll take it now. And he says, no, because that's what I want. I want it now. I want the feeling now. I want it immediately. He said, no, we got to prep it. No, forget about prepping. You pay for it. No, it's the law. We got to prep it. So I came back that Saturday. It was on the beach, and I picked up the car, and brand new car, beautiful car, and I'm okay now. I got the windows rolled down. I'm like 17 years old, 18 years old, whatever the hell I was. Had my T-shirt on. Back then, I know this is hard to believe. I was like, I was going to the gym, you know. I had a cigarette in my mouth, and I had the cigarettes rolled up in my sleeves, and I had the sunglasses on, and I had the windows down. I was driving down Alton Road, you know what I mean? I knew that, you know, just waiting to be discovered. I just knew it was like I knew I was driving through a stadium with all the women in China looking at me or something. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. If you're an alcoholic, let me tell you something. You want to have a vivid imagination, you know, about what the hell's going on. And I drove up to the first light. Now, I just got in the car. I knew if I had this car, this would change my life. I drove up to the first light. I stopped, and some old fart, probably a guy my age now, drives up in a red Cadillac convertible. with a white interior. Drives up right next to me. I'm right next to me. And sitting next to him was like a Playboy bunny. And I look at him. He looks at me. I look at her. She looks at me. I look at him. He looks at me. And I say, man, if only I could have a car like that, I'd be okay. Yeah, the feeling lasted 3 blocks. The payments lasted 36. That's my life. Always looking for something that's going to make me okay. And I'd walk in that bar with that good-looking blonde. You know, they're all looking at me. I knew I was okay. The problem with that is when you don't have a blonde, then you want to kill yourself. You know, you don't have when you need something to feel like you're okay. I don't care if it's a car, a blonde, a job, or money, or a bank account, or something like that. Then you can never feel okay by yourself. Because deep down inside, you know you're a worthless piece of shit. That's my problem. That's my problem. I have this dual personality. Part of my brain told me I was the greatest thing in the world. I was misunderstood. I was Superman, you know. And the other part said you're insufficient piece of crap, constantly having to prove yourself. I'm the guy who's sitting on the bench in Little League saying, put me in, put me in, put me in. And I'm scared shitless they might put me in. It was a confusing deal. Let me tell you something, being an alcoholic. In any event, I drank myself out of that marriage, and I ripped that gal's heart out and left my son and did a lot of crappy things and hurt a lot of people. And about 5 years later, I wound up at 3 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day in December 25th, 1980, in my apartment all alone, having been kicked out of a Noche Buena. And, I mean, listen, if you're an alcoholic, you know loneliness as few do. Let me tell you something. And when you're alone on Christmas, and you know that you're the only guy in the entire world that's alone on Christmas. And, I got to a point where, now listen, I'm a self-pity-aholic. I don't need booze to feel sorry for myself. You know, I used to sit by the phonograph. Back then we had LP records. You guys are too young. You don't even know what those are. But, you know, nowadays I'd be a superstar with just, you know, with the MP3s and everything. But we had LPs records. So I would play some Alky song, you know, like Pirate Looks at 40 or Only the Lonely or I'm the Mr. Blue or Rainy Days and Mondays. And I'd be sitting there drinking that crap. And I'm drinking that crap and I'm thinking about my funeral. I'm thinking about my funeral. Yeah, I'm drinking that crap, thinking about my funeral, and I'm not really dead. I'm like behind a tree. You know what I mean? And all them gals were there. You know, the gals that treated me like shit. They were all there, eating their hearts out, crying because how them bitches treated me. You know what I mean? And they deserved it. Let me tell you something. They should feel bad the way they treated me. You know what I mean? Roxanne knows because, you know, she's looks like one of them gals, you know what I mean? So she knows how she is. She knows how she is, you know? You are bad, you know? But the bottom line is that, so finally I at 3 o'clock in the morning on what was it, on Christmas Day. So I know what it's like to feel sorry for myself, but on Christmas Day at 3 o'clock in the morning, some preacher got on TV and I couldn't stop drinking. You know, by the time you say to yourself, I'm going to stop drinking. When an alcoholic says, I'm not going to drink for 30 days, that's an absolute guarantee he's going to be drunk on the 31st day. But, you know, I couldn't stop drinking. You know, by the time you want to stop drinking, you can't stop. So I knew my life was over and it's never going to be better again. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning and some preacher came on and he did something that, you know, alcoholics love stories. He started telling the story about his own life and how he came to the Lord and how everything. And he said, you know, if you are at the end of your rope, you know, if you ask the Lord to come into your life, you know, and believe me, I'm anything but a God guy. I'm like an anti-God guy. You know, I'm a money, property, prestige woman guy. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was at the end of my rope and, he said, if you get down on your knees and let the Lord into your life, he says, say this prayer, sinner's prayer. And within a second, I got down on my knees. I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And I'm a Jewish kid from New York, so it tells me Some guy once said to me, he says, "You must have been desperate." I said, "Duh," like, of course because I'd gotten godly sorrow. I was not feeling sorry for myself. I was ashamed of what I had become. It's one thing to feel sorry for yourself. It's another thing to become ashamed of what you had become, what I had allowed myself to become. And a month later, I picked up a white chip in Alcoholics Anonymous. The rest is history. I haven't had a drink since, and I got myself a sponsor, and he told me, he said he wanted me to, every day, he said, "I'll be your sponsor." He says, "But this is what I wanted you to do. I want you to read the 24-hour book every morning on your knees." This little book combines AA literature with the Bible, and I want you to ask God's help to stay sober. I don't ever remember him asking me whether I believed in God. By that time, I hadn't drank in a while, and I probably would have said no, or I don't know what I would have said. I would have said probably what Clarence Brewmaster said. What does that have to do with it? And Bob Smith said everything. Now I know it is everything, because I've been around long enough to see what's going on here, what's really going on. One of the things that happens, and believe me, I can't tell you how much, from 1 year to 5 years, I can't tell you how much my mind and my attitude and how much I've seen changed me. Between 5 years and 10 years, between 10 years and 20 years, between 20 years and 30 years, between 30 years and 40. I'm not the guy who walked into Alcoholics Anonymous 44 years ago. After seeing what I've seen and all the bad breaks and misunderstandings, as they say in the big book, the repeated humiliations that life will hand you, and the final question of my self-sufficiency, I think I see things a little bit different, than a lot of people. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of stuff that most people in AA never see. You see, at 43 years, I have guys calling me up that I sponsor who have 30 years. See, some of you guys, you got people that calling you up and they got 5 years or 3 years or 3 months. And don't get me wrong, I'll talk to anybody. I'll try to help anybody. But I get guys that call me up who doing all the steps, going to all the meetings, sponsoring all the people, doing all the stuff, and they're not happy with their sobriety and they're suicidal. And they got 30 years and 35 years. And you wonder why these movie stars commit suicide and why they die drunk and, with all the money and the property. I've seen the real alcoholism. I've seen the alcoholism the way it looks like when you're not drinking. And you still know you're a piece of shit. I've seen it what it looks like to be constantly agonizing and upset and worry and lonely. I've seen what it's like to, what do you do when you're going to AA and you're doing all this? The big book says this interesting thing. If you ever think, it says these little throwaway lines that sometimes you don't see for 20 years. Lines that you don't see for 20 years. One of the lines it says in the big book, it says this. It says, alcohol is but a symptom of our disease. We got this room here. You pick up white chips for not drinking. You give out medallions for not drinking. You go to every room, they say, don't drink and go to meetings. Everybody thinks this is about not drinking. I mean, don't get me wrong. You got to stop drinking. And I certainly had to go through a point in my life where you had to realize that there's no situation so bad that a drink can't make it worse. You got to get that not drinking thing down. But if you don't work on the thing that's left over, the real deal, the insanity of alcoholism, what happens in the mind, because this is what the book says, which is I found out to be true. It says this. It's very simple. It says alcohol is but a symptom. It almost makes like it's a small thing. And it is. The drinking's bullshit. I'll tell you what I've seen in 44 years. Very few people stay sober. Most people drink before they're 15 years sober. Rarely, maybe 1 in 200 makes it to 20 years. And of the people that make it to 20 years, a lot of them are not happy. In the big book, it says here and there, once in a while, a former drinker, dry at the moment, says, feel better, look better, having a better time. We laugh at such Sally. We know he's going to try the old game again because he's not happy with his sobriety. Soon he'll know loneliness as few do. Man, you think it's tough with the drinking when you're down on your knees at 12 o'clock at night or at midnight, and you don't know what you're going to do, and you're broke, or whatever the hell it is that's driving you crazy. And so you come in here and you pick up a white chip and you stop drinking for a week or 2 or 5 or 5 years, you get involved in the thing, you're doing everything, you're feeling good about yourself. You see what happens when you're 5, 6, you see what happens with the worldly clamors that block out the presence of God and block out the whole bit. And all of a sudden you think you're on top of the world and you're going after the gals again, or you're going after the money again, or you're too busy to go to meet. You're too busy to do this stuff because you got so much stuff going on, you're a success. And you see what happens when you get to the point when you got 5 or 10 years and you feel as bad as you've ever felt in your life. And now you got no place to go. You got no place to go because you're going to AA. I know you guys are told that the reason people drink is because they stop going to meetings. Let me tell you something. You got to ask yourself, why do people stop going to meetings? They stop going to meetings because meetings are doing nothing for them. What they're doing is they're chasing the women, or they're chasing the men, or they're chasing the money, or they're chasing whatever the hell they're chasing. What they're doing is they're living the same life they lived before they stopped drinking. But they're trying to live it without drinking. You know, I remember having a gal come up to me. She says, "Don't worry about me. I'm never going to drink again." And you know what happened? The next 2 months later, she showed up without teeth because she got drunk at a wedding. And I've never had anybody say, "I'm never going to drink again," who doesn't drink, because it shows they have a total misunderstanding of what this disease is. Because they think once they stop drinking, they're okay. Once they stop drinking, the real disease takes over. Because the big book says drinking is but a symptom. The real disease centers in our mind, not our body. There's a reason why the second step says we're insane. And you don't understand that insanity part until you're 10 years sober and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're sucking your thumb and you're rolling around in bed and every minute seems like 10 years and you're nuts and you're worried about what happened yesterday, what happened a month ago, or what's going to happen tomorrow, or what's going to happen 6 weeks from now. And nothing will let it go away. And you can't tell anybody because you got all this pride going on because you're sober and who you're going to talk to. That's when you find out what the deal is. So you get in the position. You see, that's what most people don't see. They sort of come in here and they think, well, stop drinking. Everybody stay sober. No, very rare. Very rare for somebody to make it to 20 years. I think I told you about this last time. I had a guy who was into Braden. He was in treatment, the treatment programs, and they did a survey once where they had, in a particular year, they had 353 people go through treatment, and 5 years later, they contacted them all, and only like 50 of them were sober. And 14 years later, only one of them was sober, and 15 years later, that guy had drank. 350 people, nobody was sober after 15 years, after going through treatment. And I have dealt with people who have in treatment 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I've seen, everybody thinks everybody stays sober here. I know when I'm speaking to a room with 200, 300 people, something like that maybe only 1 or 2 of them, statistically, in this group, you may all stay sober forever, but statistically, I know that, you worry about the newcomer. I don't even worry about the newcomer because there's some guy with 11 and a half years thinks he's never going to drink, and in 6 months he's going to be drunk. Because he doesn't understand about the insanity, the craziness. So here we go. So when I came in, I know I've told you guys the Al Kennedy story. I got a different, I was lucky because a lot of this has to do with who you hang out with and the books you read. And the books you read will depend upon who you hang out with. And I never hung out with those guys that were sitting in the parking lot smoking cigarettes, talking bullshit, in a sense, AA can become another bar. I'm a bar drinker. 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm at the bar talking with my friends, the guys I hung around with, were alcoholics. As a matter of fact, I always hung around alcoholics. I love alcoholics. I still only hang around with alcoholics. Everywhere I go, I'm just surrounded by alcoholics. I just like alcoholics because they're crazy. They're nuts like I am, I remember one of the things I may have told you when my first wife finally was going to kick me out, and she said, "You come home drunk one more time, I'm leaving you." I was going to lose my house, my wife, my son, everything. So I'm going to leave you. Come home drunk one more time. She said to me at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was sober as I am right now, and smarter than I am right now. And I remembered it. And at around 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm sitting there. And I remember my wife saying, if you come home drunk one time, I'm leaving you. And I'm sitting there thinking about it. And my friend Doug came up to me, one of my drinking buddies, and he said, what's going on, Russ? He says, I said, I have to leave. It's not like I forgot. He says, what? He says, Ronnie tells me if I come home drunk one time, I'm leaving. She's leaving me. I'm going to have this one drink, which was already a double scotch. Whacked it down. He says, now I got to leave. And Doug, this is why I like alcoholics. He puts his arm around me and he says, Russell, you're the greatest guy in the world. Everybody loves you. I love you. Everybody loves you. Your wife loves you. She'll never leave you. You're the greatest guy in the world. And I'm thinking, shit, that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. You know? And so I had another drink and they drove me home at 4 o'clock in the morning. They poured me into my living room. And that was the end of my marriage. And if you asked me the day after I was kicked out of my house, which quite frankly I was happy about. You know why I was happy about it? And this is the truth. Because I'm a coward. Because I wanted to leave my wife. Because I wanted to go out with other women. Because I felt like I was stuck in there. Because you know what? My wife had become like that Camaro. You understand? The Camaro changed my life for 3 blocks. My wife was great for like 2 months. And then she was like a used woman. It's like a used car. You know what I mean? And that's the deal. Now, you girls may not like that, but I'm going to tell you something. You know how they say men are dogs? Guess what? We are. I happen to like dogs, but you know, we're a dog. We're looking we're in alcoholic men after 3 or 4 months. It's like they're looking for the new car. Because you know something? That gal isn't doing it for him anymore. And you know what they don't know is nothing's going to do it for him. Ever. Nothing's going to do it for them because they're pathetic. They're not even men. They're just cowards. And I was a coward because I was scared to ask for a divorce. Because he had the greatest parents and she was great and she was good and I was scared. I felt guilty. But when she kicked me out, then I could say when they said, why are you getting a divorce? Well, she kicked me out. She said it was about the drink, but I drank before we got married. We were just too young. She didn't understand me. She was trying to change me. I had my excuse. It wasn't my fault. It was her fault. That kind of deal. Because when you're an alcoholic, that's how you think. You blame everybody else. You look for an excuse. You know what I mean? You're dishonest. You don't give a crap about anybody. You know, that's the deal. And so that's what the deal was. So I read this Oh, thank you so much. That's kind of you. Thank you. Coffee was very good, by the way. So let me read this to you. This is something I read when I was about 6 months sober. I read this in one of the stories. This isn't the story he sold himself short. This latest part of my life has had a purpose, not in great things accomplished, but in daily living. Courage to face each day has replaced the fears and uncertainties of earlier years. Acceptance of things as they are has replaced the old impatient chomping at the bit to conquer the world. I have stopped tilting at windmills and instead have tried to accomplish the little daily tasks, unimportant in themselves, but tasks that are an integral part of living fully. Where derision, contempt, and pity were once shown me, I now enjoy the respect of many people. Where once I had casual acquaintances, all of whom were fair weather friends, I now have a host of friends who accept me for what I am. And over my 80 years, I've made many real, honest, sincere friendships that I shall always cherish. Now, here's the paragraph that got me. I wasn't even a year sober, and I read this thing. I'm rated as a modestly successful man. My stock of material goods isn't great, but I have a fortune in friendships, courage, self-assurance, and an honest appraisal of my own abilities. Above all, I have gained the greatest thing accorded to any man, the love and understanding of a gracious God who has lifted me from the alcoholic scrap heap to a position of trust where I have been able to reap the rich rewards that come from showing a little love for others and from serving them as I can. You know, I don't sit around worrying about running into anybody. I don't sit around worrying about what other people think about me. You know what a freedom that is? That'll go away in about 10 or 20 years. 20 years. See, that's the problem. The drinking is a symptom of the disease. For most alcoholics, the drinking goes away immediately. Immediately. Now, it may take 20 years to go away immediately. You may have to go through 10 car crashes and they'll do a little jail time or something. You may have to really hurt yourself or get paralyzed or something. But once you get to that point, you either die or you stop drinking. The problem is that's a symptom of the disease. And we sort of, and so the question is, that's the symptom of the disease. The real disease centers in our mind, not our body. And that's what we spend the next 20 years dealing with. The real disease. The money holism, the woman-holism, man-holism, the romance-holism, the pride-holism, the worry-holism, the anxiety. That's what we spend, what's going to happen to me. A guy told me once, he said, if you don't have a purpose by the time you're 30, you're going to be neurotic. And I had no purpose because, chasing women is not a purpose. Making money is not a real purpose. At the end of the game, you're still lonely. You live in a 50-room mansion. You know what I mean? You can only live in there one room at a time, and you're just lonely. So you just have parties all the time. You end up lonely. You end up nothing. There's nothing inside. There's nothing. What's going to get? Where's the fear going to go? Where's the worrying about? What are they thinking about me? And they're always thinking about you. Nobody's thinking about you. They're just thinking about themselves. And then you have to worry about the guilt. You see somebody you ever do this? You walk into a store and you see somebody and you turn around and say, I hope he doesn't see me. You know who does that? Alcoholics do that. They do that sober. Has nothing to do with drinking. Alcoholics get letters in the mail and they rip them up without reading them. Alcoholics get telephone calls and they check the call ID to see what they want to talk. Alcoholics live a life of absolute fear. They're scared of who's calling them. They're scared of who's mailing them. They're scared of everything. Absolute fear. The problem is we sort of think that once we get rid of the drinking, they're going to go away. But the truth of the matter is we drank because we had those feelings. That was the anesthesia we used so that we wouldn't feel that way. So we'd feel okay. But what happens when you drink and all of a sudden what happens when you get depressed and scared and you drink and you get worse? Well, you got to stop. So you stop drinking. But the problem is sober fear is the worst kind of fear. 3 o'clock in the morning, sober fear, and you are awake and aware of everything that's going on around you. You're aware of the money problem. You're aware of the life problem. You're aware of every problem in the world. And you get to the point where there's no solution. Then what are you going to do, Big Shot? And you sort of think, and you don't know how to get rid of it. You vomit over somebody, your sponsor, you talk about it, whatever. That doesn't get rid of it. Then you pick it up again. You become a thinkaholic. You can't stop thinking. You're 3 o'clock in the morning. You think about the same thing you've thought about for 2 weeks. Same exact fear you thought about for 2 weeks. 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't get to sleep. Now you're thinking about how worried you are because you can't sleep and you got to work the next day. So you say this to yourself as an alcoholic. You get this idea in your mind. You say, this thing is killing me. I got to stop thinking about this. Stop putting a dime in my bag. You say, I'm going to stop thinking about this. And then 5 seconds later, you're thinking about it again because you can't stop thinking about it. And that's the real disease. How are you going to stop worrying about what people thinking about you or what they're going to think about you? And don't get rid of that stuff. You know what happens? You either commit suicide or you do stupid things to people or you get yourself in trouble or you self-destruct or you drink again. Maybe you don't drink. You go to a psychiatrist. You tell him your problems. You go to a doctor, your GP. You say, I can't sleep at night. I got all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm anxious and everything. Going to medical school. He knows everything. So he says, I got just the thing for you. All you have to do is chew on this thing. Let me give you this thing to chew on, and everything's going to be okay. And what the doctor's really trying to say to you, let me explain to you, that's Dr. Code. What he's saying to you is this. I really don't know what the fuck is wrong with you, and I really have no idea how to help you, But if you chew on this thing, maybe it'll calm your ass down so I can deal with somebody who's really sick. That's what they're telling you. Instead, you chew on that stuff anymore, and you're chewing your booze, and next thing you know, you're either drinking or really screwed up. You're drinking and chewing on the stuff, too. And I know more alcoholics that get drunk, or maybe you just, go for another romance, another woman. That'll get you drunk real fast, Woman, my name is death, you get another woman, and all of a sudden she looks at you funny and says no, or she says something bad to you. She hurts your feelings or something. Or you got a man and he hurts your feelings, and then you start going into a depression. So the bottom line is the guys I hung around with would order me to do things like get down on my knees, ask God's help. And did I believe in God or not? I guess so. I did what they told me to do. I did what I was ordered to do. There were no suggestions. That's the one thing about my sponsors. They all had like 20, 30 years. I respected them. I wanted what they had. Whatever they had, I knew it wasn't what I had. They had something I didn't have. And so when they told me to do something, I wanted to do what they did. And, the bottom line is faith is not taught, it's caught. Sometimes you hang around. Let me tell you something. I hung around guys in a bar, and all they talked about was women. That's all they talk. Every once in a while, they talk about money. I could read people's minds. I'd see a guy in the bar walking with a good-looking blonde. I'd look at him. I'd look at the blonde. I'd say to my friend, look at that asshole. I knew he was an asshole right up. I knew I didn't like that guy. You know what I mean? You could tell. He probably thought he was better than me. You know what I mean? Yeah, because that's how alcoholics are. They talk bad shit about other people behind their back. And the reason they talk and gossip bad shit about other people behind their back is because when you feel like a piece of crap, if you can talk about other people, it sort of makes you feel better. It's sort of like drinking. Gossip is like drinking. It makes you feel better if you can focus on somebody else and call them names and get them to agree with you. And then your friend, of course, says, oh, you think he's a piece of crap? Let me tell you about my boss. He's a real piece. And then you just start that alcoholic talking. My sponsor saw me, heard me talk about somebody behind their back one day. And he said, Russell, this is Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't talk about other people behind their back. If you have something to say about somebody, either say it to their face, or if you have something to talk, if you're talking about somebody else, and they're not around, you better be talking about something nice about them. I'm a talker. I like to talk. What am I going to do? And so, but he hurt my feelings. He really hurt my feelings. He said that in front of a bunch of people. He humiliated me. He said, why don't you just shut up? What's the matter with you? Why don't you shut the fuck up? Why don't you go get a drink? We don't do that crap. You know what I mean? He really hurt my feelings. I was thinking about firebombing his house or killing his wife or something. Then I realized, I sort of thought that the only reason I was not drinking was because of that guy, and I knew he loved me. And so I became the AA police. If I caught you talking about something, I'd say, you can't don't be doing that, And I actually stopped pretty much talking about other people behind their back. And you know what happened? I started feeling better. Because what you have to do, if you want to say something bad about somebody, and then you hear him in your brain, they have a way of living in your brain. You're not supposed to say that. I say, that gal Roxanne? He says, well, she's a pretty nice gal. You know what I mean? And then after you're done, I'm using you tonight, Roxanne. I'm teaching you a lesson, whipping you like a rented mule. So and then you know what happens is you do that. If you do that enough all the time, then the next thing that happens is not only do you stop talking bad about other people, you start thinking you start thinking good about other people. And you find yourself thinking nice things about other people. And you don't think bad about other people. And then one day you wake up and your sponsor says, how are things going? He says, I feel great. Now, if he said to me, Russ, if you don't talk about other people behind their back or have these thoughts about other people behind your back, you're going to feel better. That wouldn't have made any sense to me. It makes no sense to me. But he didn't do that. He said, why don't you just shut up? Because that's what alcoholics understand. Humiliation. That's why we have repeated. They understand being humiliated. They understand being hurt. They understand people rejecting them. Because if you're an alcoholic, please don't reject me. Please love me. Please accept me. Your whole life is built upon people accepting you. You're never sorry for anything you do. You say you're sorry. I mean, if you're an alcoholic, your whole life is saying you're sorry, but you're not really sorry. You never say you're wrong. What you mean when you say you're sorry, you understand it. Sorry is alcohol code for, I said I'm sorry. Now you're supposed to say, that's okay, forget about it. You know how you know that? Because if I say, like Roxanne, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and she's supposed to say, Russ, forget about it, it was okay. If she doesn't say that, I said, what the hell's wrong with you? I said I was sorry. I said I was sorry. What's wrong with you? Because you're now supposed to do what we are expecting you to do. Tell me that I'm okay and you still love me and care about me. Because that's the way alcoholics are. That's the way we are. Selfish and self-centered. The problem is we think all that stuff that's inside of us and the way we act, that we've been acting like that for 20, 30 years, we think that's going to go away just like booze goes away. And the problem is with alcohol, the great thing about alcohol is, you see, they don't arrest you. They arrest you for driving while drunk. They don't arrest you for driving while being an asshole. They don't arrest you for driving while being depressed. They don't arrest you for driving while talking about other people behind their back. They don't arrest you for driving while lusting or driving while craving things or buying things. Now, you may get into trouble down the road. You may go bankrupt. Your wife may divorce you. The boss may fire you because of your mouth or something like that. But the bottom line is the drinking can get the wheels come off faster, and the drugging, the wheels come off faster. But you can get away with being a self-centered son of a bitch for 20 years sober, until the wheels fall off, until you're 15 years sober. And what I found is that whether I liked it or not, is the God thing worked. That's what they said. They had me read all these spiritual books and, you ever want to see what AA is really about? Read Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. Read what they were doing from 1935 to 1939 before they most people don't like the God thing. That's what they say in the big book. They say if a mere code of morals or better philosophy of life would have helped us, we'd been sober a long time ago. They never helped us. We had to find a power by which we could live. And therefore, of course, we had to talk about God. And it says, here's where alcoholics get pissed off. Because the last thing you want to talk about, or even hear anybody talk about, is God. So we can do this. We can wait until you drink again or go to jail or something like that. And then you'll come crawling in. You want to hear about it. Or we can be bold enough to talk about it. I'm one of those guys that I talk about it. You know why? I don't care where I am. I can be in San Francisco talking to 1,000 people, and I can be in, anywhere. Banff, at their convention up there, wherever I'm talking, I never change my tune. I'm always going to talk about God. And you know why I can do that? Because I'm not worried about what they're thinking about me, because I'm not my shoes, I'm not my shirt, I'm not my weight, I'm not the car I drive, and I don't, in that promise, lose fear of people and economic insecurity. I figured that one out. I didn't figure it out. It was given to me as a gift. Staying sober, getting sober is a gift. Nobody here really knows why they're sober. They may think they know, but you don't know. You have no clue. One day you're drinking and you can't stop drinking and you think your life is over and you can't envision a life without drinking. A week later, you're not drinking and you don't have a desire to drink. Nobody has a clue as to how that happens. So, I guess because it's AA or something like that, it's a gift. But the other stuff takes a little bit longer. It doesn't go away like the drinking. The lusting, the craving, the pornography, all the stuff that we do that makes us feel like pieces of crap. And we don't know why with that. All the stuff we do that makes us feel ashamed of ourselves and all that stuff. The worrying, the anxiety, that doesn't go away like immediately, quickly, But, the truth of the matter is, whether you believe it or not, one day, if you get into that deal, it'll be a gift. You'll wake up one day and all of a sudden you won't be worrying about what other people think about you. You won't have to have the last word. You won't have to argue with people. You won't have to have the last word or argue with people. You won't have to do that. You won't have to convince them. You won't be worrying about what they think about you. You won't have to carry around all this hatred and bullshit in your mind, thinking about yourself. You won't have to use the TV set or your telephone or anything like that to distract you from everything that's going on because you feel so worthless and empty inside. You can live a genuine life like a genuine human being. You can become authentic. I have rarely ever seen anybody stay sober for over 20 years and act to good purpose unless they have a serious faith in God. I've just never seen it. Now, listen, I have people between 20, 30, 40 years that don't run into trouble. But whenever they run into trouble and they talk to me, it's never because they don't know how to do a fourth step. It's never because they don't know how to do a 10-step or they don't know how to do, I may tell them if they seem confused, why don't you do a 4-step? And I may tell them do the steps because the steps are useful. But 99% of the time, it's because they're lost in their own mind because they're so focused on themselves instead of focused on God. You know what it says in the last page of the book? It says, but we will not know people like you. We won't have a sponsor. What if you don't know you, Dr. Bob or Bill Wilson? He says, we cannot be sure. He says, but you must understand your real reliance has to be on God. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. We have meetings, our meetings, and Roxanne knows our meetings. Some of you guys know our meetings on Zoom where we have 80, 90 people for 4 hours. They're AA meetings, and all we talk about is God. We don't even talk about drinking. We got newcomers. We don't even talk about drinking. They come back over and over again. They stay sober for 4 or 5 years. The AA meetings they're used to going to is AA meetings where all they talk about is God. They may talk about other problems and things like that, but all they talk about is God. And they stay sober. Drinking is besides the fact. They're not even thinking about drinking. How can they get closer to God? And that's the meetings I go to, the fellowship I crave. The fellowship I crave is not necessarily the don't drink and go to meetings fellowship. That's the fellowship I crave. I go to that fellowship. I belong there. It's called the fellowship. Because you know what the big book says? It says, see to what your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. You know what Dr. Bob said? Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All things will be added unto you. That's first things first. That's what it means. He coined that. You know what the big book says? You'll meet some of us. You'll meet some of us. Some of us. In the fellowship of the Spirit. What's the fellowship of the Spirit? Well, I know what the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is. The only requirement to be here is the desire to stop drinking. Some people don't even have that. They're just going through the motions. That's the fellowship of AA. But the fellowship of the Spirit has a different requirement. Not everybody in AA is in the fellowship of the Spirit. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people in AA that don't want to have anything to do with the fellowship of the Spirit. They get pissed off at meetings like this. They don't hear stuff. It makes them uncomfortable. You know what I mean? I understand that deal. That's okay, because whenever you're upset, no matter what the cause, there's something wrong with you. When you throw a rock into a pack of dogs, the one that yelps the loudest is the one that gets hit. I love when they get all pissed off, I mean, just the idea of leaving this room and have me on their mind for another week thinking about what I'm saying because they're so pissed. I can't tell you how much it excites me. If they knew how much it makes me feel good that I'm pissing them off, they would not be pissed off just not to make me feel good. You know what I mean? Just, can you imagine that? I just love it. And they come up to me 8 years later. I used to hate you, but now I love you and all that shit, and all that crap. So that's the deal. That's it, because it works. One of the things they said in the big book on the 4th and 5th step, they say, why all this thing on the 5th step? Because if you don't do it, you're going to drink again. Why all this thing about the God thing? Because if you don't do it, you're going to drink again, or you're going to feel shitty. But here's the deal. Alcoholics have the ability. You guys know this, don't you? We can feel like pieces of crap for 20 and 30 years and not drink and handle it. How many years did you feel like shit before you came to AA and you kept on telling yourself you're actually okay? Well, there is no problem. We have the ability to live a crappy life for decades and not realize it's crappy and just tell, yeah, but look at this house I'm in. Look at the car I'm driving. Look at the money I'm making. Just look at me, But then, eventually it all comes home to roost. All the people, they come home to roost, and we either drink again, blow our brains out, get arrested, the wheels fall off, So that's why, I'm a big guy as far as faith is concerned. And, I'm compacting these. Usually I do 12 weeks, but I'm only doing 6 weeks here because I started another one up in January up in Broward County, at the 12-step house. So this is like a 2 and 3. I'll sort of mush them together. Next week we'll do like 4 and 5 and that kind of thing, 6 and 7. So thank you very much.